So I'm going to share with you a salivary hormone test, and we're going to walk through it as if you were a client or a patient. That way, when I'm talking about salivary testing, what can we see? What does it show us? How is it useful? We're going to become familiar with that. That way, hopefully it answers some questions that you may have, especially if you've been on the fence about doing yours. So here we are looking at a real test. This is one of my clients, and I have gone ahead and taken her information off, so there's no identifying information here. But it's a great example of a pretty basic hormone test. So when we do hormone testing, one of the things I always order for my patients is full cortisol. So cortisol is our stress hormone. We all have it. We wouldn't be here if we didn't. It's required for life. Cortisol has a baseline curve. That curve should be highest in the morning and slowly come down throughout the day. When we are stressed, the brain then tells the adrenal glands, make more of that hormone. And when the stress goes away, we go back to our baseline. But during chronic stress, there's increased demand. Make more. Oh, new stress is here. Keep that coming. And we don't get the chance to go back to baseline like we should. The system can't keep up with that demand, and so it becomes dysregulated. When it becomes dysregulated, we become symptomatic. So we can look at that in salivary testing and see where somebody is in terms of how far along they are in dysregulation, if they're at all dysregulated. So this black line here is this woman's cortisol curve. We can see she has a curve. That's great. It is highest in the morning and it comes down and it stays low at night. But she doesn't come down slowly. She has a bit of a plummet. So if we look at her from a numerical perspective, her morning is pretty darn perfect at 22. We want that value to be about 18 to 20. That's my goal for folks. If the morning's 18 to 20, I'd like to see midday around 7 or 8, and she's pretty low at 2. If we're 7 or 8 in the middle of the day, then I want to see 3 or 4 in the evening, and she was just under 1. And if we're 3 or 4 in the evening, I'd like to see somewhere around 1 at night, and hers was undetectable. That's what this little less than sign means. It was quite low. So if we look at that from now a perspective of her symptoms, this can feel like fatigue, it can feel like stress, but here we can see what she's reporting. So she's reporting stress, anxiousness, irritability, nervousness, decreased sharpness, fatigue that gets worse later in the day. That makes sense with what we saw. Some sleep difficulties, decreased stamina, and some cravings. This cortisol, this is our gas tank. If our gas tank is low, the body is going to crave something to help give us quick fuel. Oftentimes, that's sugar cravings or simple carbohydrates like potato chips, something that works real quick to give us energy. If we're not getting it from here, we have to get it from somewhere. So this can often be the root of cravings. Then the DHEA level here, this is a hormone also from the adrenal glands. Its job, especially after menopause, is to become other hormones. It serves as a building block. It has a lot of other roles too, but mostly as a building block. It should start to decline somewhere 40s, 50s, something like that. So this reference range we see here of 106 to 300, that's what we expect to see before it declines. So if you're over 50 and doing this test, usually we're going to see this kind of low. As in her case, it's 68. They will repeat it on the second page for us because DHEA is the building block for testosterone and the building block for estradiol. So estradiol is our main estrogen. When we talk about estrogen, we're really referring to estradiol. And she is within range at 0.7. The range for somebody not using it would be 0.5 to 3.2, somebody using it 1.0 to 6.0. So she's a little bit on the low end of the range. Let's see if she has any symptoms. And this is a very simplistic look here on symptoms, but here we can look at maybe hot flashes, the heart palpitations, some night sweats, vaginal dryness. Those can all be symptoms of lower estrogen. And then her progesterone, while it's in range, it's on the low end of the range. And again, this reference range, this is just an average of what we see for women who are postmenopausal. It doesn't mean it's what we want to see optimally. So she's normal because most postmenopausal women are going to have low levels. Again, normal does not mean optimal. None of us are ever going to settle for normal. So progesterone has many, many roles in the body. Here, we can look at it from a standpoint of how well is it balancing estradiol. That's one of its main jobs. So that's what this ratio is. This progesterone to estradiol ratio is a measurement of how well progesterone is balancing the estradiol she has on board. So we're looking for something ideally over 200 or at least over 200. Over 200 is where one doctor saw improvement in bone health with progesterone use. I see women feeling better over 400, and she's at 72. So let's look at her symptoms. Symptoms of lower progesterone and a lower progesterone to estradiol ratio are going to be these over here. Difficulty concentrating, increased forgetfulness, foggy thinking, tearfulness, depression, mood swings, fluid retention. Again, simplistic look at it, but it's a nice, easy way to see what we can expect to improve as we optimize these levels. This can also be contributing to her hot flashes, some of the scalp hair loss, the night sweats, things like that. Then the other thing we're seeing here is a low testosterone. So again, we get that little less than sign, which means the system, the testing system, couldn't pick up any. So it's tested out lower than what the system could see. So whether that's 0 or 5, we're not sure. The system only goes as low as 6. So I think of women being optimal around 20 if they're not supplementing. She's pretty low. That makes sense. Her building block is low, her testosterone is low, her estradiol is low. So when we think of DHEA and testosterone being low, those are what we call the androgens, or male hormones. Of course, women have them too. And when they're lower like that, we can think of them contributing to these symptoms here: decreased muscle size, flexibility, burnt out, sore muscles, joint pain, back pain. Bone loss can be those, estrogen and progesterone, rapid aging, aches and pains, things like that. The one thing I will point out here is libido. Libido can be a mix of everything. That's not just one hormone. We all want it to be, give me some testosterone, it gets better. Not necessarily the case, but certainly balancing hormones can be helpful there. So then from here, what we would do is come up with a plan for this woman to help address what we found. So we found a HPA axis dysregulation. That was our cortisol levels being dysregulated. This is what some people call adrenal fatigue. So we would treat her adrenal fatigue. We would treat and look at addressing her estrogen, so trying to boost that somehow, boosting her progesterone, boosting her testosterone, boosting her DHEA. So in her case, everything was pretty low. That's not always the case. It happens to be the case for her. So next we would come up with a plan that addresses these findings to help get all of those symptoms that she's reporting down to 0. And it's that easy.